Let us come to the part F of module 1, cost behavior pattern and separating the components of semi-variable cost. In this module part, we are learning what is cost behavior patterns. Secondly, then we are learning separating the components of the semi-variable cost, and last, what are the methods of segregation of semi-variable cost that we are going to learn. So let us come to the understanding what is cost behavior pattern. Now behavior pattern exactly talks about the change in the cost with the change in the level of production. Now there are two components here. One is a total cost, another is a per unit cost. Now based on the changes in total cost or per unit cost, we have given the names to it. So let us read the lines here first. The cost behavior pattern. This shows how the operating costs relating to the product or services change or remain constant when there is change in the level of production. So we are going to study the pattern of how the cost changes or whether it remains same with reference to change in the level of production. The cost is analyzed with reference to varying production level or sales volume during the period. Now let us come to the cost behavior patterns, where the classifications are either it is a fixed cost, variable cost, or it is a semi-variable cost. Semi-variable is also called as a semi-fixed cost. Now let us read first one on fixed cost. When cost remains constant over a wide range of level of production, and whereas cost per unit varies with the level of production. Here the two things are there. When cost remains constant, even though the production has increased, the cost has remained constant. What is the cost? Total cost has remained the constant. Whereas per unit varies with the level of production, but per unit cost changes with the level of production because the lump sum amount is fixed. If the production is higher, if you divide by higher number, your cost per unit is less. Example, let us say a factory rent is there of 10,000. If you manufacture 10 units, 10,000 will be divided by 10 units and you will work out that 1,000 is a cost per unit. But if you manufacture instead of 10 units, if you manufacture 100 units, then 10,000 rupees divided by 100 work out to cost per unit is rupees 100. Now here the total cost is remaining constant, whereas per unit cost is changing with the level of production. It is called as factory cost. What are the examples of this? Factory rent, manager salary. Now these are the expenses which do not change with the level of production. The cost remains same. Factory rent remains same irrespective of how much you are producing. Now second variety is a variable cost. So let us read the second paragraph. When cost changes or varies with the level of production, and whereas cost per units remains constant. How will you identify whether this cost is variable or not? When you find that as the production increases, the cost is increasing, total cost is increasing. But cost per unit, if you calculate, it remains same. Now examples are raw material cost. Whatever raw material you consume for 1 unit, let us say you are consuming 2 kg. If you manufacture 2 units, exactly double of that, you will consume 4 kg. So this way the cost, total cost changes with the level of production. But what happens to the per unit cost? If you manufacture 1 unit, you are consuming 2 kg. If you are manufacturing 2 units, for every unit you are consuming 2 kg only. So per unit cost remains constant, whereas total cost keeps on changing. Now all these behavioral pattern will be studied in depth in a topic of classification of cost, where you have to study and understand how the calculations are also done. So let us understand here that when the level of production changes, our total cost keeps on changing. If level of production is double, our total cost will double. But if you calculate the per unit cost, it remains constant. It will remain same irrespective of production level, whether you are manufacturing 1 unit or 100 units. Example once again to read. Raw material cost. workers' wages. So these are the cost per unit which remains constant, whereas total cost will change with the level of production. And third and main component that is there in our module is semi-variable cost. Now what is the feature of semi-variable cost so far as total cost and per unit is concerned? Let us read the third paragraph. When cost varies with the level of production but not in the same proportion of production level. So here the cost is changing with level of production. Higher the production, higher the cost. But exactly not in the same proportion. Means if the production is double, your total cost is not doubling. It may increase by say 60%. And sometimes if your production level is increased by let us say 10%, still the cost may remain same. So here the cost is changing, but sometimes it remains constant also, sometimes it changes. Now this is called as semi-variable cost. The alternative name for this is semi-fixed cost. Now let us read the last paragraph. Such cost is a blending of fixed and variable cost. Why it is behaving like this? Because it is a mixture of these two. Some components are fixed cost, some components are variable, and then the total is your semi-variable cost. So per unit cost fluctuates as increase or decrease. Examples are there: supervisor salary, power expenses, maintenance cost. Now these cost increases with level of production, but sometimes it remains constant also. So it does not fluctuate in the same proportion as the production level has increased. Now this is called as semi-variable cost or semi-fixed cost. Now let us come to the next part that we are going to learn is separating the component of semi-variable cost. Now as we discuss, semi-variable cost is a blending of fixed and variable cost. So we have to segregate those things. What is the fixed component? What is the variable component in a cost? Segregation of all costs, that is fixed and variable, are required from semi-variable cost. So in order to take the best judgment for level of production changes, first you should know what is the fixed component and what is the variable component. Now for separating the components, we are having various methods. Really speaking, in our syllabus, we don't have a practical problem on module 1. We don't have a practical problem on module 1, but knowledge of this specific separating the component of semi-variable cost is required when you go for the another module on a cost sheet. When you solve a problem on a cost sheet, you need to know how to segregate the fixed and variable cost for judging the estimated cost for some other level of production. So let us go through these 5 methods. One is level of activity method, range method, equation method, method of averages, scatter graph methods. So first one, what we are stop. Now here you can see the illustrations which are essential for solving a problem on a cost sheet. There is nothing practical so far as this first module is concerned. But let us see how to segregate the semi-variable cost. Now let us take an illustration wherein it is given in the month of January and February. Output quantity is given and semi-variable cost is also given to us. Now how it is segregated? Firstly, we will calculate what is the variable cost component in this. For that purpose, the formula is change in the amount of expenses divided by change in output activity level. Whatever output or activity level is there, whatever the change is there in that, what are the total changes in amount of expenses. The first component is, look at the semi-variable cost, 28,000 and 25,000. So what is the change? 3,000 is the change. Change in expenses is 3,000. Now what is the change in the output level? Output levels were 5,000, now it is 6,000. So 6,000 minus 5,000 is 1,000. If you simplify this, you are getting a variable cost component as 3 rupees per unit. So variable cost we have calculated. Variable cost always we talk about a per unit. So variable cost we are calculating per unit and not the total column. So per unit cost is 3 rupees. Now what is semi-variable cost? A simple formula is there. Whatever output is there, output multiplied by variable cost per unit plus fixed cost. This is the standard formula. When we apply some more at more occasions, this formula will be very familiar to you. But it is calculated as output multiplied by variable cost, that is a variable cost component, and next one is add fixed cost, that is the fixed cost component. So for the month of January, let us substitute in this formula these figures. What was the semi-variable cost? 25,000. What is the output? 5,000. Multiply by 3 just now we have calculated, plus fixed cost elements. Now when you simplify this, our answer we are getting is fixed cost is rupees 10,000. So ultimately we have separated the components of fixed and variable from the semi-variable cost, and what is the answer? Variable cost per unit is rupees 3. And what is the fixed cost? Fixed cost is 10,000. Now not necessary that for January only you can do the calculation. If you substitute the figure of February, then also you will get the same result as fixed cost is 10,000. You can do the calculation. 6,000 multiplied by 3, and this side it is 28,000. So 28 minus 18,000, again fixed cost you will get 10 rupees only. So ultimately here we have used a change formula, and by using a change formula we have worked out the variable cost, and finally work out what is the fixed cost. Now there is a other alternative way also of calculating this. So we can use for that purpose equation method. Now whatever equation just now we have studied, total semi-variable cost is equal to output multiplied by variable cost per unit plus fixed cost element. By using this simultaneous equation, we can solve this problem and work out what is the variable cost component and what is the fixed cost component. So let us substitute the figures here. There are 2 months. So let us form 2 separate equations for this. For the month of January, what is the semi-variable cost? 25,000 equal to 5,000 multiplied by variable cost. We don't know the variable cost. We want to calculate that. Plus fixed cost. We don't know the fixed cost also. So this is the only figure we could substitute here. Now beyond this also you can substitute for the second month 28,000, 6,000 multiplied by variable cost plus fixed cost. When you simplify this equation, we are getting a value of variable cost as 3 rupees per unit and value of fixed cost as rupees 10,000. This way, by using a equation method, we can work out what is the variable cost component and what is the fixed cost component. Remember once again that fixed cost is a lump sum amount that we are calculating. In case of a variable cost, a per unit cost that we are calculating. So this way we can segregate a semi-variable cost with reference to change formula, wherein we work out a variable cost first and then fixed cost. Or otherwise, by using a simultaneous equation, by equation method, we substitute the value, then we simplify these 2 simultaneous equations, and ultimately we can get what is the variable cost per unit and what is the fixed cost per unit. Now this is the end of the module. Thank you very much.